Thank you. So Pharmos is a drug development company. We're focused on neurodegenerative diseases, which has been a bit of a movement away from traditionally what the company has been focused on. We were previously in the veterinary space, developing our drug, monopentol, for B-cell lymphoma, but we're totally moved away from that. And the reason why we've totally moved away from that is because of the mechanism of action. The mechanism of action for monopentol, which originated as a veterinary product, it used to be used as a sheep drench. The mechanism of action for monopentol that exists in human cells is a process called autophagy. And autophagy is a bit of a buzzword at the moment. A Japanese doctor received the Nobel Prize for Science around his discovery for autophagy. And autophagy is a process that our cells use to remove metabolic waste. And we have a way, through using monopentol, our drug, to stimulate autophagy. So we're using autophagy at the moment to move forward in our lead development program for motor neurone disease, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. But because autophagy is central, it's important, it's often dysfunctional in a range of neurodegenerative diseases, there's an opportunity for us to look at using monopentol in multiple sclerosis, in Alzheimer's disease, in Huntington's disease and Parkinson's disease. So there's a whole range of neurodegenerative diseases that could potentially be open for investigation for us. Why did we choose amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or motor neurone disease? We chose motor neurone disease to start with because, as much as it's a hideous disease, and most of you are probably familiar with the Ice Bucket Challenge, Neil Danaher, Stephen Hawking's, that's motor neurone disease in its raw. We chose amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is the major form of motor neurone disease, because it represents the low-hanging fruit. It represents the low-hanging fruit because we've got an opportunity to accelerate monopentol through the development process and potentially have this drug available for use at the end of 2026. And this talk today is really elaborating on that. Why can we do that? We've just done a phase 1 study. Why can we expect to get accelerated approval in 2 years' time? Come on. Forward. So there's a number of reasons why we can expect to get accelerated approval in such a short period of time. We got some fantastic phase 1 study results. When we put monopentol into patients with motor neurone disease, we saw glimpses of efficacy. And those glimpses of efficacy was enough to get the FDA over the line in terms of providing us with an orphan drug designation. But it was also enough for us to be accepted into the prestigious Healey ALS platform trial. That's a trial that's being ran out of MassGen in the US by two pioneers, if you like, in motor neurone disease or ALS. They have a direct line into the FDA. That trial it's under an IND, so we simply provide the drug, we tack in as one of the arms in that trial, and because of that, we're able to decrease the timeline by 50%, decrease the cost by 30%, and we're able to open up the number of patients that are eligible for that study. And the reason why we're able to increase the participation rate is because of the platform, the innovative structure of that trial. The placebo, look, whenever you do a clinical study and you want to get FDA approval, you need to have a placebo-controlled study. Normally it's 1-to-1. We're dealing with a rare disease. There's not many people that want to sign up for a clinical study where they've got a 50% chance of getting the placebo. They want to be on the active. In the Healy platform trial, the innovative design allows the ratio to be 3-to-1. So you've got 75% chance of being on the active compared to the placebo. And that's because of the structure of the trial. They use a shared placebo group because it's a platform trial. So over the last 6 months, it's been an incredible journey for Pharmos. Not only did we get some really good data out of our phase 1 study, safety and tolerability. Earlier talked about safety and tolerability. It's one of the key hurdles. Our patients have been on monopental out to 21 months now. For a disease that typically, on average, the life expectancy is just over 2 years. We've had patients on drug for 21 months. Pretty impressive. In terms of the safety and tolerability, did we see many adverse events? This patient population is a very vulnerable patient population. For motor neuron disease, they're pretty much, they don't get around much. They're open to all kinds of infections, particularly in the respiratory system, because that's one of the systems that's affected the first. We only saw 3 adverse events in our clinical study that went for 12 months, and we're still seeing a low rate of adverse events. So for a vulnerable patient population to see long-term safety and tolerability over an extended period of time gives us great confidence that we can tick that off in terms of one of the things that we need to get across the line with the FDA or any regulator. The other impressive aspect that came out of the phase 1 data is that our target's in the brain and in the spinal cord. So a lot of drugs, there's plenty of drugs out there that work in the Petri dish and can show activity in a cell line, but for it to get out of the blood, into the brain, into the spinal cord, to where it needs to exert its effect, there's not that many drugs. It's one of the reasons why neuroblastoma is so hard to treat. There's not many drugs that go across the blood-brain barrier. So one of the fantastic things that came out of the phase 1 study was that we were able to show that the drug made its way across the blood-brain barrier, but also its active metabolite. And that's kind of rare for a metabolite that's active, for a start, but also to go across the blood-brain barrier. So we're delivering almost 2 doses to the target, which is in the CNS. The other aspects we've spoken about, orphan drug designation, acceptance into the Healy platform trial, but then there's the other overarching aspect of monopental. It's a approved veterinary product. The regulators have already seen the drug. They manufacture it on a 100-ton scale. So typically in drug development, you've got to worry about animal safety to get it into the clinic. You've got to worry about manufacturing to get it into the clinic and get it approved, to get it to launch. And then you've got to worry about your clinical trial results. So we're at phase 1, manufacturing tick, safety and tolerability ticked. Efficacy, we saw efficacy in our phase 1 study. 12 patients, that was enough to get a prestigious outfit like the Healy ALS platform trial across the line. 12 patients. They've had a number of companies in that Healy platform trial. A number of companies. We're the first company that got accepted into that Healy platform trial on the basis of 12 patients. Impressive. So we're on a pretty fast track in terms of packaging this all up together with the Healy platform trial, submitting it to the FDA, and then starting to enrol in our phase 2/3 study. Our next study, that's all that's required to get approval, either accelerated or full approval. To do that, we've recently refreshed the board to bring on the appropriate skills in corporate governance. Also, we don't see us as being the company that takes this across the finish line. We're setting the company up for an acquisition. So to bring on people that have the have the necessary background in those financial transactions, the necessary networks, was going to be an important thing for us to do. Then we've got a team that we've assembled to get us through the clinical, to get us through the manufacturing, and obviously the next frontier for us is that we're seeing a good result in our motor neurone disease, ALS. Can we add value by doing some inexpensive preclinical work in a petri dish or in animals to show that we have value, a utility in other neurodegenerative diseases? And that's going to be the focus of the company over the next 12 months. We know we can sell our ALS product for a premium. We need to continue. We've got an opportunity because of autophagy, because of the mechanism of action, to do some low-cost experimental work to fill in underneath and show that this is not only a billion-dollar company, but a company that's worth quite a lot more than that, because we can not only do we have a potential to treat motor neurone disease, but we may have a potential to treat some of those other more prevalent diseases like Alzheimer's disease and the like. When I started, I spoke about how we're on track to deliver a drug in 2026. How can we do that? We've just finished our phase 1 study. We can do that because the disease that we're targeting is motor neurone disease. It's a rare disease. There's hardly many treatments available for motor neurone disease. We can do one study, and that study is through the Healy platform trial. It's an adaptive phase 2/3 study. At the phase 2 juncture, we have an opportunity, should the results be successful, to go to the FDA and seek accelerated approval. That's that 2-year time frame from now. An opportunity to go to the FDA and get accelerated approval. Very unusual in a biotech. Not only just to go from phase 1 and then do another study and potentially get approval. It's very, very unusual. Why can we do that? Because it's rare disease, because there's so few treatments available for motor neurone disease. We have an opportunity to a very low bar, I might add, to show efficacy, life extension in patients with motor neurone disease and get that accelerated approval. And why does that opportunity exist? It exists because the life expectancy on average for a patient with motor neurone disease from onset is 2 years. Remember before I spoke about our phase 1 study? We have patients that have been on the drug for more than 21 months. The average life expectancy from onset is 2 years. The other interesting aspect about motor neurone disease is that the incidence is going to increase by 70% in 2040. They think that's largely related to pollution. As the atmosphere gets more polluted, we seem to be getting a rise in motor neurone disease, ALS. The other and most telling and disgraceful aspect of this slide is that there's really only 3 treatments that are available for motor neurone disease. 3 treatments. One is tofersen that received accelerated approval. It only treats 300 people in the US, 300 people, because it targets a rare mutation, a SOD1 mutation. Rolutec, radicavia, they treat the majority of patients. So worldwide, the addressable markets are over 300,000 patients. Roluzole, Rolutec, radicavia, edaverone, they basically treat those patients. Roluzole, 2 to 3 months. A lot of patients don't even bother, 2 to 3 months. Radicavia, the list price is $173,000 US. It only prolongs life by 6 months. Very, very low bar. And just to fast forward, This is probably our most impressive data that's come out of the trial to date. So we have had patients, our 12 patients, on drug for an extended period of time. This is the survival data from that study. I'll be quick. This is the survival data. And we have the ability to compare back to a historical database. Because it's a rare disease, we don't necessarily have to have a placebo group because it's unethical to give patients placebo. So we have the ability to compare back to a natural history database of patients with motor neuron disease. And when we do that and look at our patients, we see a highly statistically significant result in survival benefit with monopental. I'll leave it there.